So, in a few minutes' time, we'll be watching William Parker's performance for TUSK TV. Before that, a few words from the great man himself. I started off by asking him about the idea of community and solidarity and how that's manifested itself through his music.
So you're what you want to do is trying to rise up, and the society isn't giving you any help. So how do you help yourself? You have to rely on each other, and you have to have a community so
Mhm.
that there's more than one of you doing this movement, and you have a greater chance of succeeding because you can't really do anything alone. Whereas if you had an infrastructure, which is mean if you have like a huge record company promoting you, all the jazz clubs love you, you can do a TV show, you can do a radio show, you have record and bookstores, your music is taught in the public schools. That's an infrastructure that kind of pushes culture. And not just what I do,
Mhm.
but what if America is a melting pot, then whatever goes into that pot, each of those elements should have a say in the culture.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, I'm Afro American, I'm black, then someone else is from is Mexican American. See, in America, you can have that. You can be Mexican American, Italian American, German American. Then some people think that they are American American, but everybody's something. There's no, there are very few people who are American American,
Mhm.
except if you talk about the indigenous people, then they're indigenous, not American American, because it's America was thrown on them and created with them, just saying, uh, you're here, but now we're going to push you away, and now we're going to call this America, regardless of what you've been calling it for the last hundreds of years.
Mhm.
So I think that community is very important to support each other and to even uplift each other. That's why organizations were founded. The Jazz Composers Guild
Mhm.
in the '60s, because they had to band together to see if they could push things forward a little bit. And that's all people are trying to do is get their music played and um, and make a presence so that the musicians want to play for people
Mhm.
if they possibly can. And that's why you have organizations, Arts for Art. You had the Jazz Composers Guild before that, the Jazz Composers Orchestra, Collective Black Artists. You had many other organizations. You had the loft scene where
Mhm.
musicians were running lofts and presenting themselves, basically. And then they have the independent record companies. Everyone was
Mhm.
putting out their own records because the major record companies weren't recording everybody.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I'm really interested in that idea of the loft scene. I mean, I think maybe a lot of people who maybe from more of a kind of punk or experimental background who go to Tusk Festival think of DIY and those kind of music scenes. But jazz has also been doing that for many years. And all the things you've been talking about are great
I don't
examples of that.
know, because when you're a kid, or and you read the magazines, and and people are traveling around and going to Europe. That's what you want to do. You want to sign with Columbia Records, and because Miles Davis is with Columbia Records, and
Yeah.
and you want to have your music in every home in America. Why not? When you give a concert, you want it to be sold out. I
Mhm.
mean, that's kind of what the idea of it is, to play for people.
Yeah, in terms of organizing things yourself, you had the Sound Unity Festival in 1984. Is that right? 83,
Yes,
84?
1984, and then
Yeah,
repeated in 1988.
yeah, yeah. And there's a great film, Rising Tones Cross, which I'd recommend
Yes,
to
there
everyone,
is.
that captures that scene. Um, I think that was quite a difficult period though for the music, and in terms of budget cuts to federal arts funding, indifference from record industry. So you're really having to go for it on
In
your own.
America, but in 1988, Berlin in Europe. They used to have the cultural cities used to go
Hmm.
around, and it would rotate. And Berlin
Yeah.
was a cultural city in 1988, and that's where Cecil Taylor did a residency. And we did that 10 CD box thing for
Mm.
FMP, and then worked the whole summer in Europe. So Europe was flourishing while America was sinking culturally.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And then when in the 90s, once you started In Order to Survive and Little Huey, kind of leading a new wave of free jazz, um, did you conceive of those as kind of community oriented groups and that were trying to bring different musicians from different generations together, different approaches to the music and trying to
Well,
boost the whole community?
at that time there were a lot of different schools of music.
Hmm.
Musicians had by everyone was sort of locked in, and people who came in the 70s, they were established uh, mostly in Europe. If you look at
Hmm.
everyone's record discography, you'll see Black Saint records,
Yeah. Yeah.
you'll see Hat Hut records. Okay, you won't see Blue Note records. You won't see not the avant-garde. You'll see FMP, mostly European labels, and a lot of the recordings were done live in Europe, not
Hmm.
here. So
Yeah.
again, things were beginning to flourish there, and but here it was still a struggle. It was a
Hmm.
struggle to sort of play where you can, when you can. And around the early 90s, began doing tours of America with the drummer Greg Bindian and Peter Broadsmith.
Hmm.
And so we got in the station wagon and began to go across America. And the first time we did it, it was very rough. Second time it was better. The third time it was better. So we began to, and then other musicians were doing that also
Hmm.
on different levels. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that was beginning to be a breakthrough, because you had these little places, and all you needed was one person in a little place like Anderson, Indiana, where we played. There was one guy, and who knew about Anderson, Indiana? But he was there. He said, "Well, there's no music here. I'll bring it." And that's
Hmm.
kind of how it was at every place. Up in Boston, you had one place. In Amherst, you had Michael Ayers doing his Fire in the Valley Festival. In California, in San Francisco. So we began to have like a touring route, again with no funding.
Hmm.
No funding. The government and would not fund the music, or was like all of these artists, thousands of people applying for one grant. But again, you don't need grants. Does Beyonce need a grant? I don't think so. Does pop
Hmm.
music need a grant? No, because their pop equals popular. And how they get popular is that they have all this promotion.
Hmm.
And and when your name becomes Frank Sinatra, it's a household name.
Hmm.
So everyone knows who Frank Sinatra is, but how many people know who Leon Thomas was,
Hmm.
or Betty Carter?
Hmm.
So um, so the thing is, you need this structure to hold you up and to make things develop, because eventually you want to be self-contained. Every time you do a concert, people show up. I remember once I was in Europe and we were doing a concert, and there was also a big pop concert, and there was an opera concert, and there were a world music concert, and every venue was full. Every venue was full because people were not sitting home watching TV. They were out supporting the arts. Now, of course, even if the place is packed and and you need funding,
Hmm.
because you have advertising, you have a lot of overhead, but people were out listening to the music. And at some point, you need people to fill the houses.
Mhm.
And so, but again, that's a supportive job. Everybody you talk to, I said, you know who Charlie Parker was? He says, yeah. You know who the Dead Kennedys? You know about Sonic Youth? Yeah. You know about Albert Ayler? Yeah. You know about Lester Young? Yeah. This is one person knowing all of this music.
Mhm.
And you don't get that here in America. You don't get that where everybody knows about Albert Ayler, and they may know about Curtis Mayfield and the Temptations, and they may know about Snoop Dogg and some of the popular rappers, Lil Wayne. But how many, Lil Wayne fans have the album Ascension in their record collection?
Mm.
I don't know. Maybe all of them do. Maybe Lil Wayne's an avid Coltrane listener. I don't know. But you want around, we don't want to say, well, our music is the only music that exists, and these people don't have the right to present their music. Everybody has the right to present their music and to offer it to the people.
Mhm.
We just want to be able um, to offer what we have on the same level as other people are offering their music.
Yeah,
Although
yeah.
there is a sidebar when listening to high vibrational music.
Mm.
You begin to think,
Mm.
begin to put two and two together. You begin to question. And that's something that certain people in every culture don't really want too much,
Mm.
because especially in America, because America's full of that tune Criminals in the White House.
Mm.
It's full of criminals, it's full of crooks, it's full of gangsters, it's full of shysters, that are always trying to run con games to make money. And if people start thinking, they like say, well, suppose you started to shake your mind instead of your booty. You start figuring out what's going on. How come they put so much sugar in these drinks? How come on Sunday they got us all watching sports? What are they doing on Sunday in the White House that we need to know about? Because they got the whole country watching sports, and then push it that sports is more important than thinking, than being
Mm.
an individual. So all of this, so there's a reason why this music is kind of like, we sort of hold back on it and put it over to the side, because you think it
Mhm.
moves you, it motivates you, and a lot of people don't want that to happen. They don't want people to be motivated, uplifted, and they don't want to cause any sparks to ignite.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean your current album or box set, Migrations of Silence into and Out of the Tone World, is definitely a lot of consciousness raising going on there, messages of solidarity to different oppressed groups. So that's clearly something that's important to you in your music still.
Yes, I mean that's what the music is for. I'm not trying to express myself. Who I mean, it's not about me trying to, express myself. I'm not trying to make chord changes connect. I'm not trying to make a pretty melody. I'm trying to play music that's going to heal and lift people, so they can be inspired to be themselves. Because I don't think people are being their true selves. I think individuality is being squashed, and we're being shaped by media. We're being shaped by government and pharmaceutical companies and industries. We're being shaped so that we can buy their products, that we can get online when the new Apple product comes out. Lines around the corner. And we were getting along fine without Apple, believe me. I was there when there was no Apple. I was fine. I was happy.
Yeah, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your performance for Tusk.
Well, it's a solo bass performance. And again, I'm exploring the things I've been working on since the pandemic,
Mhm.
um, which are the idea that dealing with light, and light equals strings vibrating, and the bow equals prism. When light goes through prism, you see colors.
Mhm.
In those colors, they move into rhythm areas, into partial melodies, into shapes, and then we just go from there. We just go from there, listening, exploring, repeating motifs. You'll hear, spontaneous composition and hopefully spontaneous improvisation based off of a floating or movable vocabulary, meaning that the vocabulary is there, but it's not pre-thought.
Mhm.
It's not set. Usually the last period of actually doing solo bass concerts, I don't really use any preset ideas. Whatever comes up, and it's just open to the sound and trying to avoid going to places I've gone before, but discovering that when I go to places I've gone before, they've changed the lock, so I can't get in.
Mhm.
So I got to figure out a new way to get through that door. And that's the most wonderful thing about music. If you're doing things right, once you go someplace you went before, and if you can get in there, then it's like, whoa, okay. But you want to go someplace and the door is locked. You can't get in. And that's what you want. You got to find another. And that's creating, and you get inspired to move in a different area. And even when it's you find also you discover it's hard to play the same thing. Even when you play the same thing, it's different. And that's like, wow, that's one of the most greatest things about music is that um, everything's always different. And you don't even know it's different, but it's always different. It's like we're different every moment. Music is different every moment. So it's great. So that's basically what I'm doing. And we call that reflections, you know, sonic reflections.
Yeah, well, that's a good point at which to say thanks so much for your time and your wisdom,
Oh,
and enjoy the performance.
thank you. You too.